Welcome back to Big Gold Belt Media. I'm Damien G with another film review on the network. This time I had the pleasure of watching Ultraman Rising, scheduled to be released on Netflix on June 14th, directed and co-written by Shannon Tyndall and also co-written by Mark Holmes. If you are an Ultraman fan of back in the day, this is a completely different take on the character you're probably used to if you grew up watching things like Super Sentai, Beetleborgs, Power Rangers, where the mech gets beat up or the monster gets destroyed, or like Voltron, where you form the blazing sword and you good wins in the end. Now this one's a little bit more wrinkled in a way, where there's a little bit more wrinkles to this, where it's not just Ultraman versus kaiju and that's it. This is a little bit more in depth, a little bit more idiosyncratic, and a lot of it has to do around family. And I hate to keep using that phrase made popular by Dominic Toretto, but this one has a lot of stake within the dynamic of family. And with that comes many shapes and sizes of family, some by blood, some by circumstance, some just by choice. And this movie does a really good job of melding the theme of family without hitting you over the head like a blunt object continuously. Think Captain Caveman hitting me over the head continuously with a family. So yes, you have some action. You're going to get some fights. You're going to get graphics, in my opinion, some animation that was a little uneven, and it took a little bit to get used to on my end. So let's just say this. Recount it. It's Ultraman for a new era. That's number one. Number two, heavy focus on family. From the main characters to what would become the main characters to, even at the end of this movie, the connection to other family. All around. The good guy, the bad guy, the hero, the villain, the ancillary characters. It's all about family. There's even a grandma in here where you think it's just a throwaway character, but in reality, she actually means a little bit more to the story for one of the side characters. So that was pretty interesting. And I'm not gonna spoil too much for you here. All I'm gonna say is it's a story of love. It's a story about grief, forgiveness, becoming more mature as more responsibility is placed on you. Now, that's something a lot of us can bond with, can get together with. That's something I can connect to. As someone myself who took a long time to quote unquote mature, I share a lot in common with the characters here in Ultraman Rising, where I've been stubborn, where I didn't want to forgive family for something that they may or may not have done. I wanted to stand my ground. I thought it was about me. I didn't think about anybody else but myself. So this is very relatable for somebody who grew up either bitter in a family dynamic or grew up selfish. And I don't mean that in a negative. Like, they did this just because they wanted to get noticed by people that they cared about. So that could be deemed as selfish. So a lot of that is around this family. And a little bit formulaic, I'll say that. And I'm trying to be nice here, because when I left the theater, one of my quick review was, good job, Netflix. That's number one. Number two, this is a family film for all ages, big and small. People will gain something out of it. But, excuse me, the things that caught me by surprise was the lack of fights. If you're here thinking you're going to get Voltron, Ultraman, things of yesteryear, no, you're not getting that. You're not getting Power Rangers and fighting a kaiju. You're getting it in spurts. You're not getting it continuously. So it's more focused on the human that plays Ultraman. More so, or humans, mini spoiler there, that play the character of Ultraman and what being Ultraman means in the vacuum of society, of life, of Japan. Even the bad guys, the villains of this movie were not villains, at least in my realm. They had their reasons. And like a Thanos type villain, there's always a reason behind something. And the villains here, or the villain here, had their reasons for wanting to do what they do. And one of the first lines of the movie, they mention, there's what seems like a throwaway line about the kaijus aren't necessarily the bad guys. And that's brought to the forefront in this movie. You're thinking, again, if you have that old school mentality of just kaiju bad, Ultraman good, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. The kaijus are fighting for something specific. Ultraman's fighting for something specific. The bad guys are fighting for something specific. You get the idea here. There's lessons in vulnerability. There's lessons in trust. Like I said, forgiveness. There's a lot of life lessons to be learned in this movie. And I will say this when I get to my rating shortly. I will say the story was the best part. I thought the way the story played itself out, in parts formulaic, like I said, but overall, really well written from the grounded nature of family bonds and wanting to make amends. So this movie did carry that out. So I'm very pleased to say that on this front, this movie hit a home run. And if you've seen the movie, you know why I'm saying it that way. There's a couple of shout outs to Hideki Matsui, who used to play for the New York Yankees, but also the Giants in Japan. There's a lot of references to Japanese baseball, which it's a lot different than American baseball. There's a cultural difference, where it's team above me, it's we above me. And obviously the main character does not really get that at the beginning. They're a little bit cocky. They're a little bit attitudinal, or as I said in the movie theater, he's a young punk. Ken Sato's a young punk in this movie. And then he has this really strained relationship with his father, Professor Sato. Some things happen between them two, two butting heads. One doesn't think they care. The other one thinks they care too little. So just something to keep in mind while watching this film. So as far as ratings are concerned, I'm just going to start here. And again, I'm giving the story an 8. The visuals in parts were amazing, very akin to Spider-Verse, especially during the fight scenes. I thought that was pretty good. The animation of the character models, it took a little while to get accustomed to it. And let me just tell you right now, it's not because the characters are Japanese. It's because the way that the models were made to look was a little jarring. And if you're not used to it, it'll take a while. So it took me a good maybe 10 minutes to get used to the character models. So I gave that a 6.5. Now the action, that only got a 7. And I say that because when the action happened, it was interesting and it was badass. There just wasn't enough of it. And I get why, because this is aimed at young adults, children. So you don't want to have nothing. You don't want to have strictly rip roaring, like a Dragon Ball Z fight scene every 5 seconds. You have to make it a little bit more spaced out for a movie. This is not a 30-minute children's cartoon show. So I understood that. But when you hear Ultraman, you're thinking fighting, you're thinking lasers and shields and explosions, and you get that, but you get it in pockets. So if you're a big time action fan, you like popcorn movies, for instance, that are just going to give you mindless fun, I'm going to give this a 7 for the action. So you take a 6.5 on visuals, you take a 7 on action. I gave the story an 8. I'm more leaning toward an 8.5. It wasn't perfect. Like I said, there was a few dry points, especially with one of the side characters. There wasn't enough fleshing out for one of the side characters, and maybe even 2 side characters, which you can guess in the comments who I'm talking about. So overall, I give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. What say you in the comments down below? Let me know. Again, Ultraman Rising scheduled to be released on Netflix on June 14th. Directed by Shannon Tindall, co-written by both Shannon Tindall and Mark Holmes. Let me know in the comments down below. Did you enjoy this movie? This is good for kids. This is good for families. Big kids like me will have a couple of moments that reminds me of childhood. So even from that level of remembrance, of nostalgia, that good drug called nostalgia, you'll get that too. But let me know in the comments down below. BigGoldBelt.com. Big Gold Belt all across the board on your social medias. And let us know, because we're your one-stop shop for all things entertainment. Let me know in the comments. Do you agree with my rating? Do you not? What did I get wrong? What did I get right? Until next time, Damon G for the next review.